Hello, my name is Max Geiger, and this is my biographical presentation on John Coltrane. Sorry that I couldn't do it over Prezi. For some reason, it was not working, so I figured I would just film it, upload it to YouTube, and then put the link in there. So sorry about that, Professor. But here's my biographical presentation on John Coltrane. Early life and musical roots. Coltrane was born in North Carolina. He spent most of his life in North Carolina until he moved to Philadelphia in the early 1940s, 1943 to be exact, due to a large amount of unusual deaths in his family. He grew up around church music, but he used to listen to the big bands of the 30s and the 40s. Johnny Hodges and Dexter Gordon were two of his particular favorites. And after moving to Philadelphia, that's where Coltrane really started to hone in his skills on the tenor sax, alto sax, and clarinet. Military service. Coltrane enlisted in the Navy in 1945 and was stationed in Hawaii. I thought this was funny. On his U.S. Navy enlisted personnel qualification card, he wrote under the heading for skills in machines, musician played saxophone and clarinet in orchestras during various musical engagements, both part-time and full-time. After Coltrane served one of his 2 enlistment years, he was sent to Maryland and then discharged shortly after. Then Coltrane took on an apprenticeship when he got to Maryland and was basically a horn for hire, backing up various bands, ensembles, big bands, and that's where he started to work his way up the ranks from local musician for hire to something much, much bigger. Coltrane then starts to play in national ensembles, and he starts to play with people like one of his idols, Johnny Hodges, Earl Bostic, another idol of his, Dizzy Gillespie, and Coltrane, that is when he started to play tenor sax, and that's what he started to become known for. It was during this endless succession of gigs and travels that Coltrane first got into heroin and started to get into narcotics. Coltrane was playing in Jimmy Smith's group. Actually, he's my favorite keyboard player in jazz history, especially on, I love Jimmy Smith. But despite Coltrane's sorry, I just got lost. Coltrane was playing in organist Jimmy Smith's group at the end of the summer of 1955 when a call came from New York City to audition for Miles Davis's band. Despite Coltrane's initial uncertainty, he said he doesn't know why Miles picked him, but years later, Coltrane was still with Miles. Coltrane initially, in his first stint with Miles Davis, spent 4 years with him, and it catapulted the unknown saxophonist from local obscurity to national renown. Under the spotlight that came with playing alongside Davis, Coltrane evolved from what many heard as faltering insecurity to bold, chance-taking confidence. This time with Miles Davis was really where Coltrane started to get his first taste of professional style. But as we'll see in a little bit, he gets some mentorship from someone else later. Davis provided Coltrane an open-ending, instructionless freedom to explore and find his own voice. Coltrane referred to Miles Davis as the teacher. But in 1957 is when all things kind of changed for Coltrane. That is when he fired himself from Miles Davis's band, and then he was basically a freelancer trying to find himself again, trying to have a spiritual awakening of sorts. He found God during this time away from the band, really found himself, quit heroin cold turkey, and right after this is when Blue Train first comes out, and that kind of marks the first work of Coltrane post-addiction, post-recovery, and spiritual awakening that kind of sets the tone for the next step in John Coltrane's evolution. This is the next step of Coltrane's evolution when he starts to work with Thelonious Monk. No event in 57 proved more enduringly significant to Coltrane than his summer-long collaboration with Thelonious Monk, of which Coltrane said, "I learned from him in every way, through the senses theoretically, technically. Monk's tutelage, more direct and patient than Miles, helped him grasp music riddled with strange melodic leaps and rhythmic breaks, and appealed with its own logic. When Coltrane returned to Miles' group at the end of the year, the trumpeter was on his way to developing his own new jazz trumpet and saxophone vocabulary, Kinda Blue, the greatest jazz album to ever be written, and Coltrane was blessed to be a part of it. Miles started to shift into a new type of open-ended modal structure with jazz, and this really kind of fit where Coltrane's strengths were starting to lead into, especially in the late 50s. Coltrane released Giant Steps and Kinda Blue basically at the end of the 50s, early 60s, and these were the two biggest projects that he has ever been a part of probably in his entire career. The core quintet and the spiritual expansion that happens from Coltrane in the early 60s is something very interesting. He starts to gain so much success and notoriety that he breaks off and really leans into his quartet and quintets that he is in charge of. He releases some notable albums, My Favorite Things, Africa Brass, John Coltrane and Johnny Hartman. And by the early 60s, Coltrane was a nightclub and festival headliner. He was a force in terms of record sales and box office receipts, and he was a major influence on many of his peers. And by then, his albums were listened to all sorts of musicians around the world. The early 60s really marked Coltrane's complete arrival as one of the greatest in jazz history. A Love Supreme and musical enlightenment. Love Supreme is one of the most interesting Coltrane works of all time. He recorded it at the end of 1964 as an attempt to basically thank God for his reawakening in 1957. It's a 4-part album. It's really, really interesting. It's a lot of chanting, a lot of provocation, a lot of improvisation. It's basically Coltrane's self-portrait of the new man that he became after 1957. Coltrane put truism to the test in 1965, and in the late 60s, before his death, he really started to reflect in his music what was going on in the times. He was very close to Malcolm X and looked up to both Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, and his music was liked by both of those gentlemen, and it seems like Coltrane really had a strong appreciation for the activists of that civil rights movement. In the last years of his life, Coltrane's reputation and notoriety reached its highest level. Those closest to him were aware something was wrong. He was often in pain, and he was suffering from liver cancer, which ended up causing his passing in 1967. Coltrane's importance today rests on his enduring role as a paragon of artistic sacrifice and spiritual vision, an original voice who sits atop the pantheon of African-American cultural heroes. The inspiration his legacy continues to instill remains as strong as it is necessary. Evidence of the unifying power of music, an argument to cherish one of our collective heritage, to dictate, to listen to, and learn from each other. One of the greatest musicians of all time, John Coltrane's name and musical legacy will stand the test of time. Again, John Coltrane, one of my personal favorites. Probably my second favorite jazz saxophonist of all time. And just a very interesting and fascinating musician to watch progress from a boy whose idols become his peers to then rivals. And Coltrane really played with such a wide variety of jazz legends. And it really just molded him into such an interesting player. So thank you for your time, and that is my presentation.